Good evening. I wanted to talk of my experience and how I've overcome social anxiety. Something that I talked about in my video on depression. One of the main contributing, factors to cause me to get depression. So how have I lived with what is, and how have I overcome and still overcoming social anxiety? So the first thing, social anxiety for me is in social situations. So talking to a stranger, talking to an attractive woman, being in groups of people, sitting with groups of people, makes me feel incredibly self-conscious, or used to do incredibly self-conscious. It would make me go into the flight and fight response, so I would perspire way more than normal, sometimes profusely. I would get extremely hot all over. I would fidget. I would look away all the time. I was constantly trying to avoid things. Trying to escape these situations. You think you become extremely self-aware of yourself. So you sort of lose sight of what the other person is saying sometimes, which makes things even worse. I say you tend to look down, so I would mumble a lot, which then makes it even worse because once the person has to say, "Oh, excuse me, what did you say?" That in turn kind of keeps things, the symptoms keep going. So you sweat even more, you want to escape even more, you think more internally. You think you're blushing, so you think it's the person you're speaking to is as aware of you are as your symptoms, as you were actually feeling them, which actually isn't true. So they're my they're the symptoms of my social anxiety. Now, what have I done to tackle this, to overcome it? As again, I talked in my video on depression about how I went to see a therapist and we focused on social anxiety. That we didn't hit the depression that hard. I did that kind of more, off my own back. But social anxiety, the best things I took from therapy was obviously understanding so the symptoms I was experiencing, that's what social anxiety was, and also to understand the cycle that my social anxiety caused me to get into, that was keeping me locked in that state. So for me, the first thing obviously was the thing that caused me to be anxious. So beautiful women, or like strangers, or it boiled down to the fear of looking stupid. That was what I thought I came across like. I thought that if I physically blushed, that meant I was stupid or less than other people, and that was the belief that I held, and have done, or did do, should I say, for a lot of years. So since I remember experiencing these symptoms first when I was in secondary school. I'm 36 now, and I've been, tackling over social anxiety for about same time as my depression. So I think it's sort of about 4 years. I think again, can't be 100% accurate with that. But again, like overcoming depression, this is a challenge that I've got in my life. Yours might be different, but if social anxiety is one of those things, it's very much something you can overcome. It takes work, like everything else in life. It takes time, like everything else in life. And I'm just going to explain the things that I've done that hopefully will help other people too in the same situation. It's kind of worked for me, and I believe, and I think, like I say, seeing a therapist, this is the methods that they use to help people overcome it and to understand it. I think understanding what it is at first is just useful to know this is what you're dealing with. Obviously, then you can buy textbooks or books, self-help books that will help you understand and give you techniques and ways in which you can overcome this. But there's a few major points that I'd like to make that have helped me the most, and I think are critical for anybody wanting to overcome social anxiety. So understanding the cycle that I would go into, and this is what we worked on with the therapist. We did cognitive behavioural therapy, so CBT, and the point was, the cycle you're stuck in. So the actions you take when something causes you to become socially anxious, You have like, you know, a pattern that you'll follow, and that pattern, you need to try and break it at some point. So the first part of my pattern, or what would happen is someone, I say, would come into the room and I immediately would start to feel anxious and I would want to escape. Now, escaping the situation may make you feel more comfortable, but you're never ever going to overcome it, ever. You have to be in the situations and you have to endure the feeling uncomfortable, feeling stupid, feeling hot, sweating, you know, your heart racing. You have to experience these things regularly, unfortunately, to overcome it. It's the only way you can do it. I'm not saying you have to drop yourself in the deep end, but you do have to take daily, consistent action. And once you actually start to get to do this, you'll find it is obviously amazing, because you'll start to believe in yourself and that you can overcome this, and you'll actually start to enjoy the little tasks you set for yourself, because it feels good to make progress and to overcome something that you didn't actually, or you've lived with for perhaps such a long period of time. It's very, very freeing, because social anxiety robs you of being able to build new friendships. It's very hard to obviously attract the opposite sex, because you have to talk to them at some point. There's situations where for a guy, obviously, confidence is an attraction for a woman. So if you can't even look at her in the eye, and hold a conversation with her, then it's going to be a turn off for a lot of women. So for me personally, it's something that has held me back for a long period of time, and it's I want to be able to socialise people. I want to go to social occasions and not feel so uncomfortable, and I don't now, because I've put the work in, I've put the effort in, and I continue to do so. It's something I think that I'll have to constantly be aware of going forward. If I start to avoid situations again, then that's when I have to do them, because the more that you avoid them, especially when you're overcoming it, it will set you back. You have to keep showing your brain that this isn't a threat, this isn't something to be worried about. This is something we actually want to be doing, and it is still it's a safe environment, because that's what your body's doing. The body thinks there is a real threat, although we know logically that there isn't one. It's just talking to another person, but for whatever reason we see that as a threat. So that's like my understanding of what was going on with me and social anxiety. And the first part, like I say, is to break part of that cycle. So for me, eye contact was a big thing. As soon as somebody came into the room, I broke eye contact, or a lot of the time I'd be looking down. So if I was walking along at the street, I was always looking down, because I didn't want to make eye contact with someone, because I thought, what if they come and speak to me? It would make me feel uncomfortable. So the first thing that I've worked on is eye contact. So one of the sort of exercises I had to do was, I regularly go for a coffee at work, and I would just sit and I would try and get used to looking around and just gently making eye contact with people. When I was ordering a coffee, I had to try and force myself to look at the person when I was ordering a drink. At first, it's you feel very, very anxious. You're going to feel very, very anxious. You're going to sweat a lot. All your symptoms are going to be there. But trust me, when you do that every day and you start to get used to being able to look in somebody's eyes, it's very, very empowering. You start to actually obviously enjoy, because you spent your whole life, I spent my whole life pretty much looking at the floor. So, and also what it does is when you can break that, so even though, say, a girl will come in, but if I look at her in the eyes and hold eye contact, I might still fear, coming to talk to me, but it significantly reduces the whole anxiety, because my brain was sort of pre-trained to, as soon as I looked away, it made the symptoms a lot worse. And then I would start to do the next symptom. So naturally I would start to sweat, my heart would race, but then I would start to fidget and I would start to look at ways to escape, and it makes everything worse and worse and worse. So if you can interrupt it at any stage, it basically sort of dispels the anxiety, not completely, but it dispels it significantly. And obviously situations now socially that I'm in that used to cause me massive anxiety either doesn't cause me any at all, or it's very, very minimal. But I'm aware of it, so I can, even if I think I'm blushing, which was a big thing for me, because I went red in the face, it made me look silly. And I looked stupid, and people thought I was, an idiot. That was, they're the things that you tell yourself. They're the beliefs you actually have, which they aren't actually true. Because what I did, one of the good things that came from therapy was we actually videoed me you know, in a social situation. So what I was telling myself, because I'd never seen myself speak to other people, because you can't, you know, you don't see yourself through a video recording. And what that does is you paint a picture in your head of what you think you look like, but it's never accurate. So when I did a recording of myself, it was one of the best things I did, because it proved to me that actually I just looked and came across like most other people do. I didn't look like an idiot. I didn't sound like an idiot. I didn't blush when I thought I'd blushed. You know, I might have still felt hot, but you could, on a video, and this is obviously people looking at me as well, you can't tell, you know, we like inspected, you know, because it feels like when you're sweating, you feel like it's all down here and it's everyone can see it. And okay, you might have a patch of sweat, but it's never what you think it actually is. You think sweat's dripping off all over your face, and it's not, you know, that isn't true. And we because we go, you know, it happens every day, it becomes, you know, you become painfully aware of what is going on internally, which was the other thing that we worked on in my therapy, and something that you have to also work on is that you'll be aware of it. If you suffer from social anxiety, you become, when you you know, something invokes you know, invokes your anxiety, you just, everything focuses on you, like internally. So you think about, you know, you're painfully aware of how hot you are. You're painfully aware that you think your face is going red. You're painfully aware that you're sweating. You're painfully aware that your heart's, you know, beating faster than normal, and you're thinking about escaping. And what happens, like I say, is when you're speaking to the people, sometimes you're just so focusing on, I don't want them to notice that I think I'm going red in the face, and that you kind of miss even what they're saying. And obviously it makes everything way worse. So you have to start to practice, like everything. You have to practice every day. You have to take it one step at a time. You know, repetition is the mother of skill. So you have to do these things, like, you know, a good footballer, you know, good musician, they practice things over and over and over again. And just look at social anxiety as a game, you know, as a sport. It's something that I want to get good at, to overcome, and I have to practice it on a daily basis. So what I did was, when I went into a coffee shop, or anywhere, like even just in my van driving along, I spent a lot of time focusing on number plates. If I was in a coffee shop, I would read everything on the menu. And just get into that habit of, wherever you go, looking at other things, getting, you know, I don't know if it's your subconscious or your conscious mind, away from you and focusing on everything else. Because when you start to get better at this and start to build confidence, when you're actually in you know, in a conversation, and you're focusing on the other person, you'll find that what happens is you almost become numb to yourself. It doesn't always work that way. I found that, you know, I'd go into a conversation with someone, and I'd come out of it and I'd be like, it was like great, because it was like, I didn't even think about myself once. I could listen to what the person was saying, and I could, you know, obviously respond in an appropriate manner, because I hadn't thought about me. I was listening to the other person and watching the other person, you know, maintaining eye contact, you know, having improved posture also helps. Like I say, walking around with your head up helps overcome social anxiety. One of the other things that I would do was, I would start to walk down the street. Obviously, like I say, in the past, I would look down, I would look around, and you know, from looking at people in the eyes, I would then move on to saying hello to people, which again at first made me feel like a weirdo, because not many people say it. But the more you do it, you just don't care what other people think. You know, you say hello to people, a lot of people, you find some people just totally ignore you. That's just the way it is. Don't worry about it, don't take it personally. Some people will say hello, and you know, if you see somebody you're attracted to, if you're looking down, you're always going to miss that. So eye contact is a big thing. Like I say, saying hello to the barista, say in the coffee shop, and then I went on from doing things like that. So I went on to, when I would order a drink, I would specifically ask for a black coffee, and then just as I was gonna pick the drink up to turn away to let the next person be served, so what it would do, this would make it normally awkward for me, because I was going to have to interrupt, was I'd just turn back around and say, "Oh, excuse me, could I have some milk, please?" And it sounds stupid, but things like that were really awkward. You know, I would have basically not asked for the milk, because it was in avoidance again. So it's getting past avoiding the things that you don't like doing. And then what you start to find is this is down the line when you start to, your confidence is really growing and you're really getting the hang of overcoming this, is you kind of, I'll go through stages where I'm like I get to the point where I'm seeking out, like, what will make me feel awkward, what will make my anxiety, or what would have made my anxiety come on, and I'll like seek situations. I'll see something where I can interrupt or ask for something that I wouldn't have otherwise asked for, or if I disagree with what somebody's saying, not being rude, but I will, instead of just not saying anything and let them have their way, or I will give my opinion back, and you start to respect yourself. You build your self-esteem up, obviously, and it's kind of you're gonna build your confidence in a lot of ways, not just with your social anxiety. I think you'll be more assertive in life. And it's a really good place to be. Social anxiety is very debilitating for anybody who suffers with it. I've suffered with it for a long time, and it really, really held my life back, drastically, mainly because I didn't understand what it was and I didn't talk to anybody about it. So obviously, like depression, it's very, very important that you acknowledge you've got a problem and that you go and see somebody who can help you deal with it. And that's really all you can do, and then put in the work of overcoming it. There is no magic cure for it. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be gone. You might do tons and tons of work and think, this is brilliant, I've overcome it, and then you might have a bad day where for some reason your anxiety is back like it was. And I get it now sometimes when I'm going along really, really well, and then for some reason someone will, like, things like people paying me compliments would make me feel really anxious or really awkward, and it would like embarrass me. And it happened only the other day. This lady passed comment of me in front of another lady, and I had to sit there and we were chatting and that, but it was a compliment about me, and I just felt really embarrassed. I felt like I was going bright red, but what I remember doing was I didn't break eye contact with them. I just looked at them, felt uncomfortable inside, and just carried on. And what that did was obviously just, it meant the anxiety just eased off, and it just continued as before. They didn't say anything to me. They didn't look at me like I was a moron. Yes, I might have gone bright red. I can't control that. You can't control that. If I see somebody blush, I don't think anything less of them. So there's some of the main things. The one of the other things that I would encourage anybody to do, and that's helped me, and something that I've noticed, is doing exercising. So half an hour steady state cardio. That really seems to help with my anxiety. It seems to keep me nice and even. So if I have a week off, to prevent myself from overtraining, so I'll have a good rest from exercise. I can't wait to start again, because I can feel my anxiety is a little bit worse. So as soon as I go for a run or something, it alleviates it. It's really, really nice. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and he had his own theory on exercise and anxiety, and it was quite interesting. And I have had experience of this, and it's something I want to now work a little bit more on. But he's been doing, because he's doing Sober October. He said he'd been working out yesterday, say, for two and a half hours, really high intensity work, which is really is a lot. I mean, to me, it's almost too much, but that's what he was doing. But what he said that he noticed is when he'd worked out that vigorously for that length of time, he said he literally had no anxiety, and for a period of time after it, he felt amazing. And I've experienced that when I used to play football. So I'd have an hour and a full game of football. You're putting everything into it. You're sweating like mad. You're running around. You're being physical. You're competing and this type of thing. There was a period of time, only for a few hours after it, where you just felt amazing, almost invincible. And I remember thinking, it was like, I don't feel, I can only think, after he said that, it immediately made me think of that. It was like, I always felt super confident when I played football, and just after it. And I do think there's definitely something in, there is, because like I say, I know that with my cardio, is that, and like I say, a vigorous exercise, you feel so good after it, that it's almost like your body doesn't have a chance to worry about anxiety because it's too busy doing whatever the heck it is. Or I don't know if anxiety is something builds up. I don't know that. I'm not a psychologist or a scientist or a biologist or whatever. But that's just something to bear in mind as well. I do think exercise, throw it all in there. If you sleep better, if you eat better, proper foods, and I think if you exercise, it will help image everything in life. It does seem to be a natural remedy for a lot of things. Or certainly lessen your, like I say, it will help with depression. It definitely helps me with anxiety. It will help, if you work out, it'll help with your posture. My posture's improved, along with, that's helped me, with social anxiety. I feel more confident when when you're walking around like this all the time, looking at the ground. You don't feel very confident. But when you put your shoulder, when you put your shoulders back, and you look up, you feel more confident. You actually feel it, when you walk, nice and freely and with confident strides. You feel more confident, and people, I think, notice that. I notice it when I see it with other people. Like I say, if I'm walking down the street or in a coffee shop or anywhere, if I'm not making eye contact with people, it makes things worse, because that was one of my first coping mechanisms. I would immediately look away, and then it would put me in a negative spiral of how can I escape this situation. Whereas now, it's just not like that at all. I've got to the stage because it's like I say, I've put in the time, and if you do too, you will overcome it. I can guarantee it. I'm so convinced that this is something people can overcome, having overcome it myself, and it's an extremely good feeling, and it will improve your life. It has improved my life drastically. It really, really has. So I wish the best of luck. Please subscribe to the channel. Please leave your comments below about your experience of anxiety, or social anxiety, and how you have overcome it, or how you're trying to overcome it. And like I say, just persevere. You have to be in uncomfortable situations and take small steps. Don't just, if by all means, if you want to throw yourself in the deep end, you can. But take small steps, do little tiny things that move you just a little bit outside your comfort zone every single day, okay? And also what I would say is, when you've done those things and when you go to bed at night, give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself an attaboy, give yourself a well done for today. I did this. It only has to be a small step, and you'll feel that you've done something that's moved you in the right direction. And that's the same with any goal or anything you want to achieve. If you're making some form of progress every day, it makes you feel a lot better. And social anxiety is the same. That's what I've used to overcome it, and I really do hope that helps anybody who is suffering with it, and they can try and implement some of those things. And I'll leave it at that.